Good Wednesday early afternoon to you all, YouTube. It's a little after midday today, and I'm here with you on the internet or the computer, as you can see, I think. And I don't know how well you can tell it, but this video is going to be about the Samsung WB250F camera that I recently purchased on eBay. I bought this camera because Tommy picked one up at the Bill's son, it is Tommy, picked up one at the flea market for $5, and it seemed to work pretty darn good. And then about the same time, Bill and I both got the same idea to find one of these on eBay and purchase it. And I did mine and he did his. Mine's in pretty good shape physically. There's no scratches, no cracks, no nothing on it. It is in very good shape. Even has the original sticker there, as you can see. It says Wi-Fi, BSI, CMOS sensor, and all that stuff over there. That's still there. It hadn't been torn off. And like I said, I played around with this camera a little bit, and what I found was there is a problem with it, and that problem doesn't really, it's probably more of an annoyance than a real problem, but it is a problem nonetheless, and I thought we'd talk about that. The problem is when you turn this camera on, it comes on, no problem, everything's fine, and then in order to once it's set up the way you want it, in other words, the record mode and things like that, once you hit the record button, it will sometimes only record for a few seconds and then shut back off. Now, Bill talked about this on his flap the other day, and mine does the same exact thing. And now, it doesn't do that every time, but it does it most of the time, especially when it's first turned on, you know, in other words, if you're just turning it on for the day or whatever, it will do that. Now, sometimes after it's been on a while and then you turn it back on, it doesn't do that. But again, it's just an annoyance, and I thought, well, you know, I'm going to see if maybe a firmware update might fix that. And that began my quest to update the firmware of this camera. I did this with the Kodak PlaySport. I don't know how many of you guys realize I did that, but I did, and it totally fixed that camera. That camera operates perfectly now. There is no problems with it. It charges like it's supposed to charge. It downloads the video like it's supposed to. Everything works perfectly on that camera now. And I thought, well, you know, if it did that for that one, surely it would work for the Samsung as well. And that may well be. But the problem developed when I tried to update the firmware. Well, you know, you have to get online, obviously, and look and see how to go about this. And that's what I did. The best information I could find was that there is a program that was downloadable from Samsung called iLauncher. And that program, after you would run it, it's the same software, the Windows software, that you would use to download your images and things like that onto the computer. And one of the things, part of it is a software update or firmware update, whatever you want to call it, and that was how you are supposed to update the firmware in the camera. And so I looked and followed all the directions I could find and things like that. There is supposed to be a copy of a program called iLinker on your camera from the factory, basically. And that program is there, and it is on my camera. Now, the problem began when I ran that little, and I was in Windows at the time because I knew it was a Windows program. So I went to Windows 7 and I started doing this, and I ran that little iLinker program, and it basically came up with a message saying that it was trying to install iLauncher, but it could not find iLauncher anywhere to install. In other words, I'm sure from the factory this was made to connect to a Samsung server where that program was at, and then download and run it on your Windows computer. So that was my first setback. So I got to reading more about it, and there's like 3 different ways you can update the firmware on this camera. So we're going to say strikeout number 1 for the iLauncher. That didn't work, and I actually got on the internet and just looked, put in the term iLauncher and Samsung iLauncher. I did every kind of search you could search for, and I found out several links, but every one of the links were basically a spam thing. They wanted your location, they wanted this, they wanted that. It was one of those deals where they just didn't work. So I decided, well, I'll go on with a second method of try that. And basically what that is, and it's a lot like a lot of other cameras use. You basically take the new firmware software file and put that on your SD card, and you put it in the root directory of the SD card, and you put that card back in the camera, and then you turn the camera on, and basically the camera recognizes that there is a firmware update there, and it will update the firmware. Sounds simple enough, and that's what I thought too, but the catch is that there is no firmwares available. I searched high, I searched low, I searched everywhere in between to find any kind of information about a firmware update for this camera. Now, Samsung is supposed to have a server with update firmware or firmware versions, and that apparently is nowhere to be found anymore. And so I thought, okay, well that way's out. Now the third way was through Wi-Fi, and I haven't been able to get Wi-Fi to work on this. It sees the my router, and I type in the correct password, and it does not connect. So that was strike 3. So what I did basically in the meantime, and I will flash up a picture of some of these things as I go through, because I'm doing this all first, and then I'll go back and add pictures to it. But what I did recently, that's today, this morning, since I got up, I got to looking some more, and when you run the iLinker program from the camera itself on Windows, it says can't find specific, and it gives you a specific name, and what the name is, iLauncher underscore setup.exe. That's the file name. And what I did was copy that exact file name using upper and lowercase lettering, just exactly like it was listed there. And I searched for that file on the internet, and lo and behold, Internet Archive had a copy of it. And it was, in fact, the correct software. So I downloaded that, I ran that on Windows 7, and sure enough, it recognized my camera as exactly what the model number was and knew exactly what it was. And the utility to download images and videos, that was there, and it works. But the software update, if you click that, it basically says that no firmware, I guess database or whatever you want to call it, can be found. So the only thing I can surmise from that is that over the course of the years, Samsung has probably either disabled those servers or no longer linked to them, or whatever the case may be. I'm sure, I think this camera came out in 2013, somewhere around there. And I'm sure sometime in those last how many years that is, they have either changed the address of the servers or done something else, or some way changed since that program was made. And that's not really something you should do if you offer support. So basically, what I'm saying is no more support for this camera. Now, I think if I had an actual copy of the firmware file, an updated firmware file, I could probably use the method that was outlined before of just copying it to the root directory of the SD card, sticking that card in there, and turning a camera on. That should do it. But again, without that information of where those firmware updates are located, or even the fact that I can't even tell what firmware is installed on the camera. That was another thing I pursued. This was for an NX camera. Now, I figured it probably was the same for my camera as well, but supposedly you're supposed to able to get into the setup menu of this camera, and you do that by adjusting that little knob it's on the left hand side of the big knob on the end, and there's a gear icon on that, and you point that at the pointer, and then you turn the camera on, and it comes up in settings mode. And that's how you set your date, format your card. There's like several different format or settings that you can adjust using that menu. And so one of the menu items is supposed to be a device information setting, where you can just put that on there. It will give you the firmware version and things like that. And I think this camera may actually have two different firmwares, one for the lens and one for the camera body. I don't know for a fact, but it may do that. I don't know. That was just the way it was listed. So that may be just for the NX cameras. I don't know. But regardless, there is no such setting on my camera. So, what do you do from there? Well, you basically, as they say, punt. There's nothing you can do until something is found. I wouldn't try to update this with anything but the latest firmware update, because you really don't know which way you're going on firmware if you don't use the latest one. So basically what I'm saying is this thing is pooched. It is stuck where it's at. Really can't do much with it. And so like I said, to that end, I'm stuck. Now, if anybody out there, some of you guys are real gurus. Even Bob had tried this, by the way, and he failed. So anybody out there that thinks they can find the correct firmware for this, or some other way of updating this firmware, please let me know. Like I say, it's a good camera. I like the camera. It doesn't do bad. It has a 20-minute limit on video, but that's not a bad thing. I think that's a reasonable limit. So, that's, and like I said, you can just start over and do another recording. It's not like it's limited to 20 minutes altogether. It's whatever your card will take. But again, like I said, it is a fairly good camera, and other than the annoyance of that fact that it resets itself sometimes right after recording a few seconds of video, it does work well. And again, it's in good shape, and I really, really want to be able to use this. And I kind of, anything I have, I like to have the latest firmware on it. Just simply because that's the best course of action for most pieces of electronic gear. So there you go. There's a look at the Samsung WB250F, and again, that's what I'm trying to accomplish with this little video, and that's what I hope to figure out. So if you can provide any information like that, be sure to comment below. Or email me. You guys all know my email address. I don't make any secret of that. So like I say, just let me know. And in turn, I am going to let Bill know, and I have been keeping him in the loop on this and letting him know what's going on with it. So if you do have any information, please let us know, and we'll be eternally grateful to be able to update the camera if possible. So, all right, I think that's going to do me. Like I said, I'll put this in to the video editor, and we'll add some images of what the Windows program said. I can't obviously do this in Windows. I don't have the same programs over there as I do here in Linux. So I did use my camera on my phone and make a copy of the screen and did it that way. So I'll insert those images in there, and you can see exactly what the messages are and what it says. So, all right, again, thanks very much for watching, and we'll talk at you later.